Hey guys, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be showing you two different sourdough loaf recipes, both from Farmhouse on Boone. I'll link it down below. So right now I'm feeding the starter. It's about 9:30. I do eyeball it, so I put about the same amount of flour in as there is starter, and then a bit of water. And then you kind of just use whatever you've got to give it a stir. Since you're not really supposed to use stainless steel, I just use my kid knives or like a chopstick, like a reusable one sometimes. So I gave that a feed, and then it'll have a loose lid on it and it sits for a bit. It surprised us by snowing that day. So I let the sourdough starter sit for usually about 4 hours. I usually just try to feed it and then time it so that I can bake with my daughter during my daughter's nap, which is about 12 to 2. So you can see all the bubbles on top and on the side as well. It could definitely get a little bubblier, but it's really not too finicky. So this is good enough. And so I'm going to first start with the Artisan loaf. So we're going to measure out, I think it's 950. I think I sit here trying to remember because I think I have this recipe memorized. Yeah, I'm like, wait, how many is it? So yeah, like 950, I think, flour. And then 600 grams of water, I believe. So you can kind of see it on the scale there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you let this, I think it's called autolyze, which is just letting the water and flour soak together, because you'll see when I stir it, it doesn't combine perfectly. But then once it sits for about half an hour, you'll see it combines a bit better. But what's perfect is that during that half an hour time is when I can make the sandwich loaf. So I'm going to let this sit for a bit, and then I'm going to get into the sandwich. And here I am trying to remember the recipe again, because I pretty much have this one memorized too. I make these about every week. So just softened butter, which what I usually do, there's so many hacks for when it's not actually cooled down, but I just put it in the microwave for about 18 seconds. This is a local honey that my mother-in-law got me for Christmas. I think that little bee on the front is so cute. It's blackberry honey. The bees like feed on blackberry, and it's really good. And then just a little bit of, well, actually a decent amount of salt. All the sourdough recipes use quite a bit of salt. And then I do eyeball this. It's supposed to be a cup. So I eyeball about a cup, and it's never turned to bad. And then I kind of mix all of those ingredients together before getting the warm water in, which helps it mix even better, and then adding the flour last. So this sandwich loaf, I do a little bit different from her recipe. Her recipe calls for 2.5 cups of water. I use 2 cups. And then flour, it calls for 8 cups, and I usually use about 6 to 7. And the reason for this is when I do the full size, it does not fit in my mixer. You'll actually see in a moment, once I add all the flour, that it still comes up on the sides. So when I do 2.5 cups water and 8 cups of flour, by the way, you can see it's sticky here, so it says it wants more water or more flour, so I'm going to add that. But you'll see that it rises up on the sides of the machine, and so when I use the full recipe, it like comes out of the mixer and it's too much. So I do all of the other ingredients the same amount, and those things just a little less. And I want to do it until it's not sticky and it doesn't come onto my finger. And this one, it does need about, I think I add about 1/4 cup more flour. Just because as I was mixing it more, it was just a little bit too sticky. So a tiny bit more flour, and then you just kind of let it go. And you can see that my other loaf is still autolyzing, and see how there's nothing on the sides of the bowl. That's what you want without it being too dry. So you can see it's still got a decent amount of moisture. Does that little stretchy, see it stretches out pretty far before it breaks, and it doesn't stick to me. So you do leave it going in the mixer for a while, but my mixer gets kind of tired with it because it is a decently heavy dough. So I just take it out, oil the bowl, and this one's done. That's all you have to do for this one. And it's going to sit for a while, usually overnight, but I actually let it sit. I'm going to make the loaves, you'll see, in the evening because it just works out better for me that way. So it's not super long ferment, but yes. So anyway, now we will get back to the other. I put the little lid on. That's from Magnolia Target. And now with the Artisan loaf, and remember, you don't have to make these both on the same day. I'm just kind of doing it because it was easy. So you can see how it's kind of absorbed a bit more. So it looks more doughy. It looks less just like a dry flour mess. So everything will combine easier. So now I'm gonna put it on the scale again, and about to get messy, so I need to take my ring off. And do you ever forget to take your ring off and then you feel like you're totally missing something and then you kind of panic for a second, like hoping it's still where you left it? Okay, anyway, so you put the sourdough starter on top, and I'm trying to remember how much it is, and I believe it's 200 grams. So you put that on top, and then you put 20 grams of flour on top. Oh, and I should mention that each of these recipes make 2 loaves. So I'm making 4 loaves of bread right now, which is totally enough for the week. This is a Sunday, by the way, that I'm making it on, and we like using them throughout the week. And the salt, and then you're gonna get your fingers wet with a little bit of just like cool water. You can see that it does take quite a bit of salt. And then you're gonna dimple it in, is what her recipe says. So the water helps it stay pretty clean, but this is a messy thing. And I've tried it by using a rubber spatula. You really got to use your fingers. And it doesn't say to do this, but I kind of start folding it into each other so that it kind of, you don't want to mix it too much, but it just is kind of nice for it to not be too messy. And then what you're going to do with those, so those are going to sit for a little bit. This guy is only going to sit for about 15 minutes before you do your first stretch and fold. That sandwich loaf it's good. You don't have to do anything else with it. I do stick it by my wood stove sometimes if it's a cooler day. You can see the snow's melting out there. You can stick it in a warm place, or you can just leave it on your counter for like 12 hours and it's good. That one's easy. And then this one's easy too, of course, so you're going to stretch and fold. So this is my first stretch and fold. So you can see it's still a bit sticky, and I'm wanting to, wet my hands a little bit more so that I don't just get all the dough all over my hands. And I do about 4 stretch and folds total. So this is the first one still. You can see how sticky it is. By the time I get to the 4th one, it is like a very smooth, nice dough. All of it is like combined super well. You'll see this, I believe, is my 3rd stretch and fold. And another choice if you don't have a wood stove is to just use the proof setting on your oven. Also, you totally don't have to, and I don't always do this, but it kind of helps with the rise time, especially since I got it started a little bit later than usual. So this is the sandwich loaf when it's risen decently. You could wait till it gets a little bit higher, but once again, it's really not that finicky. So I'm ready to put it in some loaf pans. So I'm putting this out. Just as far as like times to say real quick, I fed my starter at about 9:30, and then I started making the doughs at I think noon or 1, and then this is about 4 o'clock, I believe, that I am getting this stuff sorted, and then I'm actually gonna bake one of these loaves tonight. You'll see. So I'm just stretching it into or folding it into itself. I don't like rolling it flat because then it gets rid of all the air. Folding it seems to keep a bit of the air better. So I'm making 2 of these little loaf guys and then putting them in I usually use butter, but I didn't have any like sitting out on the counter. So I just oiled the pans and popped those guys in. And then I'm gonna put them both into the oven to proof for a little bit. And what I'm trying this time, you guys won't actually see this, but so I'm baking one of each of the kinds of loaves, and then for the second, I just have them sitting in my fridge, and I'm gonna try baking them later in the week because I heard that then it's like a longer ferment in the fridge. It gets more health benefits to it, and I haven't tried it yet. I'll try and leave in the description box how that worked out for me. So those are proofing in the oven, and then this one's about doubled in size. So I'm gonna pull that out onto the counter and make 2 loaves out of it. And you can see that one, I have a Banneton basket, which is like the normal way of using it. And so you want to flour that before you put your dough in. And then the other is just like a glass bowl with a tea towel in it. They honestly both work fine. The Banneton, if you don't use the little towel on it and it goes straight into the basket, I've had some trouble with it sticking, but when it doesn't stick, it does look very pretty. I just don't like risking it getting all messed up, so I don't do that very often. So here I'm just making some nice little balls, and they're actually going to sit on the counter for about half an hour, which is the perfect amount of time to let that sticky dough bowl have some hot water in it so that it's easier to clean out. So those stick so that they can get kind of a film on top so they really don't stick to the basket at all. And then after that, you're going to saran wrap them and put them into the fridge overnight. All right, and there's these guys proofing. Now that one is at about the top of the loaf pan, so I'm gonna eat some queso while the oven heats up, and then I'm gonna bake it. It ended up sitting in there, so I was 810, I think about 40 minutes. One of my hacks is to put this stoneware underneath it so that the bottom doesn't get too baked. You'll see in a minute, I'll show you what the bottom looks like. And so then I'm done for today. The other loaf went in the fridge and saran wrap. This is the next morning. Here's Rowan. She's watching her little Yodo, or listening, I guess. And then I have pulled this guy out of the fridge, one of the Artisan loaves, and I have the Dutch oven preheating at 500 degrees. You want to make sure it gets very hot. That gate, by the way, is not for her. We put that up for our small dogs at night so they don't go all over the house. So I don't recommend doing this with a baby because I was super distracted, just like not that she was distracting, but anyway, it doesn't turn out super pretty. So you want to make sure the Dutch oven is all the way hot before you start doing this. And then you're going to pull it out and flour the bottom and then drop in your dough. And it's I almost burned my finger. And you're going to want to make sure that you get the lid on it and get it right back in the oven immediately, because you can see that dough is pretty flat, and you'll see how much it rises. She was being so cute. Just from being in that like steamy, hot Dutch oven. And my Dutch oven's not dirty. It used to be so pretty white until the first time I put the bread in it and cooked it like this, and for some reason it just makes it dark. So if you have any hints for that, I've tried vinegar, I've tried different things, and I haven't been able to get it out. But anyway, so that's gonna go in for 500 degrees for 25 minutes. Oh, she's so cute. She's asking for her grandma. She wants us to call her. So then that's with the lid on. And then after 25 minutes, do not take a peek. Don't let any of the steam out. After 25 minutes, you're going to lower it to 425. I like to do convection so that the bottom doesn't get too dark. And I have that stoneware there as well. And then you're going to take the lid off and see how much it's risen, which it looks much better. And then this 20 minutes is really more for your preference. You can see that I still have 8 minutes left. So I only let it bake for 12 minutes because my kids don't like it too crusty. And then I'll pull it out and you'll see, and I'll cut into it. But that 12 minutes was plenty of time for my family. But I know that like adults typically like it to be that super like crunchy sourdough. And you can see the steam coming off of it. You can see how lightly cooked it is and nice and squishy for sandwiches. Thanks for watching, you guys. Here's a cute little video of my daughter eating her sourdough in her swing.